Mary Jo Wentz demonstrates the unique qualities of alcohol ink paints and crafted fiber baskets at her studio in Battle Lake.
I think I have always been somewhat of an artist because I grew up learning to sew, and with that sewing ability, first I created clothes, of course, and then various things. I learned how to weave, knit, crochet, and do things like embroidery and needlepoint and cross stitch. So that was my first foray into art. I think art is really an expression of the self, and I think more of us are artists than we may realize. It's just getting that opportunity to use art to express, and I think it's kind of a matter of exploring and experimenting to find out what you do like in art. For me, I sort of keep that fiber or that organic quality and of the fibers, and I also pour that into my painting. I find that that's the one word that I attribute to my paintings that seems to match, that they're organic. Then when I retired, I took one art workshop that was in alcohol inks and painting with alcohol inks. Painting was something I'd always enjoyed with my students, just watercolor painting and painting with tempera. But when I experienced the alcohol inks, I really liked the chemistry involved there. And I thought, boy, that is for me. Inks I love because of the colors and the chemistry, like I said, that's involved. You sort of get left with a surprise. The inks sort of lead you into what you end up painting. I have an exhibit currently that is going on at the Evansville Art Center. It's exclusively mine. Color seems to draw people in, and that's the comment I've heard from Evansville Art Center. Then I also do fiber art bowls, and I have an exhibit there of my fiber art bowls as well. The exhibit has generated a lot of interest, not just in me or not just in Evansville, but the art of painting with inks and the art of using fibers to create bowls. This is one of my favorite paintings. I love green. There's an inlet that runs into Blanche Lake. We kayak there, and this just really reminds me of the lily pad pond, where kind of midsummer is just packed with lily pads and leaves. For this, I only used one color of green, but it's the ink that works in with each other, and then you work with the rubbing alcohol to begin removing color. I usually don't name my paintings, and the reason I don't name my paintings is because sometimes I think that leads the viewer to a certain direction, where I would rather have the viewer just look at it from the direction they want to. A friend of mine said, well, this really reminds me of tulips, but in my mind, when I saw it, it reminded me of flowering cactus. So when we lived out near Joshua Tree National Park, this was something that we saw a lot of. But I don't want the viewer to necessarily think what I think. I want them to appreciate it from their point of view. Being chosen for Horizontal Grandeur was really an honor, but I really did not expect to have any of my art chosen. And as it turned out then, 2 of the 3 pieces that I entered were chosen to be in Horizontal Grandeur. And it is a fascinating exhibit. I learned a lot about prairies as well, because I didn't know that there were 19 states that had prairie. I paint most of the time using Yupo paper, and it is non-porous so that your inks won't go through it. And just to show you a little bit about what the inks do, so they're very concentrated, and there's a drop, but you can see that once it touches the Yupo paper, the color begins to almost break apart. And then if you use another color, just to look at what happens when sometimes the colors will do that, they'll kind of blend, and sometimes they fight each other. One quality I like about the inks is, let's pretend like I had just painted this and it's something that I don't like. I can take a paper towel, and a lot of my paintings actually start like this. And I can get my paper towel wet with the rubbing alcohol, and I can start, it'll lift the inks that are already there, but it also, as you can see, kind of begins to create, it leaves some color, so it creates like a background. Something else that I've worked on, first I did a background here, and then I went in and I painted my flower just over and over with these kinds of strokes to the point where I'm layering on my ink. Then I came back in and I dipped my brush in just plain old rubbing alcohol, and once you start putting pools of this, let's see, where's a good place? Here. Now you can see what starts happening to the color. And this is, again, sometimes it's a surprise, sometimes it's something that I think, oh, I don't like that at all. I can always work with color to get it to change. I can always erase it. And you begin to move that color around. You have to be willing to be patient and allow the inks to do their job. To make a fiber bowl, I start with a water-soluble fabric stabilizer, and it is kind of like plastic. It's what it feels like, except that it's going to dissolve in water. And then I just take my fiber, could be yarn, could be a thread of some sort. Sometimes I throw gold thread into it. And I just start, I know that around the rim I'm going to need to have some sort of form. So I just usually start with a circle or an oval. And then I just take my fiber, and sometimes I use raffia also, that makes a neat bowl. And I just start layering it over and over. Then I cut it. I fold it over because I need the fabric stabilizer on top and underneath of my fiber. Then I'll take my pins because I need to stabilize this. So I'll pin it all the way around until I've got it stabilized. Then I need to take it over to my sewing machine, and I just sew kind of like what I think of as a spider web, but I just sew crisscross lines, and this is to stabilize my yarns. And then I'll put this in a sink full of water. The fabric stabilizer dissolves. The yarns are still held together even when they're wet, and that's what I want. Whatever bowl I use that becomes my mold, I'll want to cover that with like a plastic wrap. Then I would lay this in my bowl of water, my pan of water, until this fabric stabilizer dissolves, because when it dissolves, it's going to leave kind of like a glue or what looks to be a little shiny substance on this, and that holds all of the yarns together. And then I would take it out of the sink full of water, drape it over my bowl, and it takes about 24 hours to dry and harden. And so it would come out like this, and then I would take that off the bowl, and I remove the saran wrap or the plastic wrap from the bowl, and then it's done. At Good Samaritan Society in Battle Lake, my husband and I go in twice a month. One time is to meet with residents who want to come to the class and paint with watercolors. Some of them have Physical disabilities, like really pronounced arthritis that may make it hard for them to hold a brush, but they love to engage in art. The other class that we teach is on the alcohol inks. It's a smaller class, but it's fun, and it's really fun to see where their art takes them. And it is a joy to work with them, and we love going in every month. It's just what we learn from the residents as we work with them is just, it just can't be matched. It's just very enjoyable. My husband and I raised 2 children. They are both artistic in their own sense, but in a very different way than I am. I like to see that they can pursue their own artistic interests. And I think as an artist, I get inspiration from them and what they are open to and what they can do. But I just think life is fun, and art is a good way to show it.